The key turned. That was the mistake, not his, someone else's. The street was quiet, too quiet for Manhattan at that hour. The kind of quiet that doesn't feel peaceful, just patient. Lucky had one foot inside the car when the world underneath him decided to tear itself open. No warning, no sound he could recognize as danger, just pressure, light, violence. For a fraction of a second, Lucky Luciano didn't know where he was. He didn't know if he was standing, sitting, or already dead. Everything went white like the city blinked, then red, then black. When consciousness snapped back, it didn't do it gently. The Cadillac was upside down. Fire was everywhere, not flickering fire, not manageable fire. This was hungry fire, wrapping metal, chewing rubber, eating oxygen. Smoke poured into the cabin, thick and poisonous, turning each breath into a negotiation. Lucky didn't scream. Screaming wastes air. His suit was burning into him. The seat was burning through him. Heat crawled across his skin like a living thing looking for places to settle. Pain arrived in layers, but pain wasn't the problem yet. Time was. He understood the situation instantly. No emotion, no confusion, just options. Option 1, stay where he was. Let the fire finish what the explosion started. Die quiet, trapped in steel, while strangers watch from a safe distance. Option 2, move, through fire, through uncertainty, through whatever came next. One option was guaranteed. Lucky never liked guarantees. He moved. Every inch was work. Hands burned against warped metal. Breath came shallow, each inhale pulling smoke deeper into his chest. The driver's door resisted him, swollen and twisted from the blast. Lucky leaned into it anyway, teeth clenched, muscles screaming. The door gave. Fire rushed out like it had been waiting for permission. Lucky followed it. Outside, the street froze. People didn't run. They didn't help. They just stared. Because what they were seeing didn't fit inside their heads. Cars explode. People don't come out after. Lucky hit the pavement and rolled. Flames chased him, clung to him, refused to let go. Someone shouted. Someone threw a coat. Someone backed away, convinced they were watching the last movements of a dying man. Lucky didn't think about them. He thought about distance. He rolled until the fire weakened, until the pain shifted from lethal to manageable. Smoke curled off his body. His hair was gone. His face was blackened. The smell of burned fabric and skin hung heavy in the air. Sirens started in the distance. That was another problem. Ambulances mean questions. Questions mean names. Names mean information. And information travels faster than bullets in his world. Lucky pushed himself up. His legs shook. His lungs burned. Every nerve begged him to stop. He ignored all of it. Standing mattered. Standing sent a message. A man rushed toward him. "Don't move," he said. "You're hurt." Lucky lifted a hand, steady despite the damage. "I'm fine." His voice came out rough, scraped raw by smoke, but it didn't tremble. He turned away from the burning Cadillac and started walking. Not running, not limping dramatically, just walking, like this was an inconvenience, not an execution that failed by inches. Behind him, the car burned like a warning flare. Ahead of him, Manhattan kept breathing. People stopped and stared as he passed. A man with his suit destroyed, skin smoking, eyes focused forward. Someone asked if he needed help. Lucky waved them off without slowing. 1 block, 2 blocks. Each step hurt more than the last, but pain was secondary. Pain could be managed. Exposure couldn't. By the time he reached the hospital doors, he was running on discipline alone. He pushed inside, approached the desk, and finally let the ground rise to meet him. "I need a doctor," he said. Then he went down. They worked on him for hours. Burns across nearly half his body. Smoke damage deep in his lungs. Clothing melted into flesh. Injuries that normally arrive attached to bodies that don't wake back up. When he did wake up, the room was quiet, controlled, private. A doctor stood near him, studying him with the look professionals get when their experience tells them something impossible is happening. "What happened to you?" the doctor asked. Lucky stared at the ceiling, calm as ever. "My car exploded." The doctor swallowed. "You shouldn't be alive." Lucky smiled. It hurt. He didn't let it show. So people keep saying. For 3 weeks, Lucky stayed upstairs, guarded night and day. He didn't complain, didn't shout, didn't ask for sympathy. He thought. Because this wasn't random. This wasn't bad luck. 5 months earlier, he'd helped erase a king. 3 weeks before the bomb, he'd erased another. Old structures collapsed. New balances formed. And whenever power moves, hands reach for it. By October, Lucky had more enemies than schedules. Sicilians who wanted tradition restored. Irish crews furious about territory. Men inside his own circle who thought intelligence could be inherited. Lucky knew all of them. He changed routes, changed timing, watched reflections, checked meals. But there was one habit he never touched. Every morning, same time, same car, someone had noticed. That night while the city slept, a man slid under the Cadillac with professional calm. No fear, no rush. Wires placed clean, too clean, 6 sticks. Overkill. The man didn't know it yet, but that decision would save Lucky Luciano's life. Because too much force doesn't just destroy. Sometimes it creates chaos, and chaos creates opportunity. Lucky would understand that better than anyone, because while his enemies thought the fire had ended him, Lucky was already planning what the fire would become, and who it would touch next. Someone out there believed the story was over. They were wrong, very wrong. Lucky woke up wrapped in silence and bandages. Not the soft kind of silence, the guarded kind. The kind bought with money and enforced by men who didn't ask questions. A private floor, private rooms, private entrances, no reporters, no cops wandering too close, no visitors unless they were cleared twice. The doctor came back when Lucky's eyes focused. He explained the damage carefully, like facts might offend him. Burns, deep ones, smoke in the lungs. Shock that should have shut his heart down somewhere between the street and the door. Lucky listened without reacting. Pain came in waves, but he kept it on a leash. Pain was loud, thinking needed quiet. "You were lucky," the doctor said, almost apologetic. Lucky didn't answer. He didn't like the word. The first week passed slow. Every breath scraped. Every movement felt like reopening the same wound. Morphine dulled the edges, but Lucky never let it take too much. He wanted his head clear, because someone had timed this perfectly. Someone knew where he'd be, when he'd be there. Knew he didn't keep guards on the car overnight. Knew the street would be empty. Knew he'd turn that key himself. That kind of knowledge didn't come cheap. Mayor came every day. Same chair. Same routine. No drama, no sympathy. They spoke in pieces. Names dropped without explanation. Rumors tested and discarded. Lucky didn't rush him. Rushed men make mistakes. "This wasn't a kid with a grudge," Mayor said one afternoon. "It was professional, clean work." Lucky nodded slightly. "Bomb." "Yeah." "Not Italian." "No." Lucky stared at the ceiling. "Irish." Mayor paused, then nodded. "That's where the trail leans." The second week, Lucky started sitting up. Pain flared. He ignored it. His body was catching up. His mind was already ahead. Who benefits if I'm gone? Who moves first? Who knows enough to try? The city was quiet, too quiet. That told him something important. Nobody was celebrating yet. By the third week, Mayor came in with a name. Not a boss, not a crew leader, a specialist. A man who sold certainty, explosives, safes, buildings that needed to disappear for insurance money, cars that became coffins. He didn't belong to anyone long-term. He belonged to the highest bidder, Daniel Murphy, freelance, careful, expensive. "He's done this before," Mayor said. 7 times, no survivors. Lucky finally turned his head, except now. Mayor nodded. "He thinks you're gone. Word on the street says he's laying low, drinking, waiting for things to settle." Lucky said nothing for a long moment, then quietly let him relax. The doctor tried to stop him when he checked out. Said infection would kill him faster than bullets. Said another week could mean the difference. Lucky didn't argue. "There are things worse than dying," he said. "One of them is letting people think they beat you." He left the hospital still marked by fire. Skin tight, hands wrapped. Face changed in ways mirrors didn't forgive, but his eyes were the same, sharp, controlled. Somewhere in Brooklyn, Daniel Murphy was counting days without consequences, interpreting silence as safety, telling himself the job had gone exactly how it was supposed to. Men like him always do. He didn't know that Lucky Luciano never mistook patience for mercy, and that every quiet day was just the fuse burning longer. Daniel Murphy drank like a man who thought the danger had passed, not fast, not desperate. Comfortable, the way you drink when you believe the worst thing behind you is boredom. Red Hook gave him exactly what he wanted. Low ceilings, bad lighting, faces that didn't care who you were yesterday. Weeks had passed. No police. No strange cars idling too long. No friends disappearing. The city had swallowed the explosion and kept moving. That told Dan everything he wanted to hear. Dead men don't organize revenge. The bar door opened and closed behind two men. Ordinary coats. Ordinary faces. They didn't scan the room, didn't look for him, didn't need to. Dan noticed them anyway. He always noticed new weight in a room. Years in mines taught him how pressure shifts. Still, he stayed seated, finished his drink, told himself he was reading shadows. 15 minutes later, he stood, paid, and stepped into the night. Cold air, quiet street, half a block of nothing. That's when the pressure returned, hard and unmistakable, right between his shoulders. Keep walking. No threat in the voice, no rush, just direction. Another presence slid in on his left, close enough that running would be stupid. Dan didn't turn around, he didn't ask questions. The warehouse at the end of the block had its door cracked open like someone had already decided how this would go. Inside, the dark swallowed sound. One light hung low, humming faintly. A single chair waited beneath it, and in that chair sat Lucky Luciano. Not the man from newspapers, not the legend. This version was quieter, scarred, wrapped in control. Smoke drifted from his cigarette, slow and deliberate. Dan stopped walking. "You're dead," he said, the words coming out thin. Lucky looked up, calm, curious. "So I keep hearing." He stood carefully. The burns hadn't finished arguing with his body, but they lost anyway. He stepped forward, closing the space one decision at a time. "You're good," Lucky said. "Careful, consistent, you don't rush." Dan's mouth opened. Nothing came out. "That's why I'm disappointed," Lucky continued. "You broke your own rules with me." Lucky stopped close enough for Dan to see what fire leaves behind. Skin that remembers. Eyes that don't forget. 6 sticks, Lucky said. That wasn't skill, that was ego. Hands grabbed Dan from behind before fear could organize itself. The chair scraped the concrete. Ropes tightened. No wasted motion. Dan's breathing went fast, then faster. Lucky turned away and came back carrying weight. Ugly weight, familiar weight. 6 sticks wired together. Dan shook his head, words tumbling out now, apologies, numbers, promises that meant nothing. Lucky listened just long enough. "Who paid you?" Dan gave what he had, not much. A face without a name, money without loyalty. Lucky believed him. Real fear doesn't negotiate well. He struck the lighter. The fuse caught, whispering. Lucky didn't rush. He never rushed. He walked toward the door, each step measured, each second counted. He stopped once, turned back, and looked at Dan like he was solving a simple problem. "You wanted to be certain," Lucky said. "So was I." The door closed. Explosion didn't ask permission. By morning, there wasn't much left to explain. The police called it an accident, a professional who stood too close to his own work. Happened sometimes. What they didn't understand was what the city understood immediately. Lucky Luciano had been tested, and he had answered, but the bomb wasn't the message. It was the invitation, because whoever paid for that fuse was still out there, and Lucky was finally ready to collect. The city adjusted fast. It always did. By the time they scraped what was left of Daniel Murphy off the warehouse floor, the story had already been rewritten. An accident. A specialist too comfortable with his own tools. A man who miscalculated pressure, timing, distance. The papers printed it small. The police closed it quick. But the underworld didn't read newspapers for truth. It listened. And what it heard spread faster than fire. Lucky Luciano had been blown apart, set on fire, left for dead. And still walked away. Still healed, still hunted. Men who had been thinking about making moves suddenly remembered appointments. Crews that had been testing boundaries went quiet. Conversations ended earlier than usual. Doors stayed closed longer, because this wasn't just survival, this was correction. Lucky went back to work the same way he always did. No speeches, no announcements, no victory laps. Power didn't need to brag. Power just resumed its place and waited for reactions. Same apartment, same car, same schedule. Only now every morning he bent down and looked underneath before getting in. Not because he was afraid, because he'd learned. The scars stayed. Hands slightly discolored, skin that never quite smoothed out again, a face that makeup couldn't fully argue with. When he smiled, you could see where the fire had signed its name. Lucky didn't hide them. Scars are proof that something tried and failed, proof that violence alone wasn't enough. People started talking about him differently after that, not louder, quieter, like you talk about storms or machinery that doesn't stop when it should. Some called him protected. Some said he was charmed. Some whispered that killing him required more than weapons. Lucky never corrected them. There was value in letting men overthink. Years later, when the city had changed again and Lucky was behind bars instead of desks, a familiar face came to see him. Older, slower, still carrying the memory. The doctor. He'd never forgotten that morning. The walk, the burns, the calm. "I've treated victims for decades," the doctor said. "I've never seen anyone survive what you did." Lucky shrugged. "I had things to take care of." "You shouldn't have been able to move," the doctor said. "The pain alone." "I felt it," Lucky said. "I just didn't listen." The doctor shook his head. That wasn't toughness, that was something else. Lucky smiled. Same calm smile, same control. "Toughness isn't ignoring pain," he said. "It's deciding who gets to use it against you." He leaned back, eyes steady. "When that car blew up, I had two choices. Stay where I was and let someone else decide the ending, or move and take my chances." He paused. "I don't let other people choose for me." The doctor left that day with a story he would tell for years, about willpower, about endurance, about the human body, but he never fully understood the part that mattered most. Lucky Luciano didn't survive because his body held together. He survived because his mind stayed in control when everything else burned. That explosion didn't make him a legend. It confirmed what the underworld had been slow to accept. You couldn't kill Lucky Luciano with force alone. You had to outthink him. And nobody ever did.